Life has a peculiar way of teaching us lessons. Sometimes these lessons come gently, like a whisper in the wind. Other times, they arrive with the force of a thunderstorm, shaking the very foundation of everything we thought we knew. This is a story about one such lesson, a story about loss, integrity, unexpected returns, and the mysterious ways the universe balances its scales. The beginning of everything. Marcus Chen had always been a man of modest means, but immense character. He worked as a maintenance supervisor at a large apartment complex in the heart of the city, a job that paid enough to support his small family, but left little room for luxuries. His wife, Elena, worked part-time at a local library, and together they were raising their 10-year-old daughter, Sophia, in a cozy 2-bedroom apartment that wasn't fancy, but was filled with love. Marcus took pride in his work. He believed that every job, no matter how small it might seem to others, deserved to be done with excellence. When a tenant called about a leaky faucet at midnight, Marcus would be there. When the heating system failed during a winter storm, he worked through the night to fix it. His dedication hadn't gone unnoticed. Tenants loved him, and the building owner, Mr. Harrison, had often praised his reliability. But life, as it often does, had other plans. H2. The unexpected crisis. It was a Tuesday morning in September when everything changed. Sophia had been complaining of stomach pains for a few days, which Elena and Marcus had initially attributed to something she ate. But when the pain intensified and Sophia collapsed at school, they rushed her to the emergency room in a panic that only parents can truly understand. The diagnosis hit them like a freight train. Sophia needed emergency surgery for a severe case of appendicitis that had progressed to the point of rupture. The surgery was successful, but complications arose. Sophia developed an infection that required an extended hospital stay, specialized antibiotics, and additional procedures. The medical bills began piling up with terrifying speed. Marcus and Elena had basic health insurance, but it didn't cover everything. The deductibles, co-pays, and out-of-pocket expenses quickly mounted into the tens of thousands of dollars. They depleted their modest savings within the first week. They sold Elena's car. Marcus picked up extra shifts wherever he could find them, working 18-hour days until exhaustion became his constant companion. Despite all their efforts, they found themselves drowning in debt, watching helplessly as the bills continued to arrive with numbers that seemed to grow larger each time. The hospital was patient at first, but eventually the collection notices began. The stress was unbearable. Marcus would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how he had failed his family so completely. A stroke of impossible luck. 3 months into their financial nightmare, something extraordinary happened. Marcus was doing his usual morning rounds of the apartment building, checking for any maintenance issues, when he noticed something unusual near the trash area in the basement. Partially hidden behind a damaged cardboard box was a worn leather briefcase, covered in dust and looking as though it had been there for some time. Curious, Marcus picked it up and brought it to a small office in the building. The briefcase wasn't locked. When he opened it, his heart nearly stopped. Inside was money, not just a little money. Stacks and stacks of cash, neatly bundled and organized. Marcus's hands trembled as he quickly closed the briefcase and looked around, even though he was alone in his office. With shaking fingers, he counted it. $50,000. Exactly $50,000 in $100 bills. For a moment, just a brief, terrible moment, Marcus allowed himself to imagine what that money could do. It would solve all their problems. Every medical bill could be paid. The collection agencies would stop calling. Elena could quit her job and focus on caring for Sophia, who was still recovering. They could breathe again. But Marcus was not a man who could live with himself by taking what wasn't his, no matter how desperate his circumstances. The thought crossed his mind, yes, but it never had a chance of taking root in his heart. The search for the owner. Marcus immediately reported the found briefcase to the building management and filed a report with the local police. He provided a detailed description of where he found it, but, on the advice of the police, didn't disclose the exact contents to anyone except the authorities. This was both for security reasons and to prevent false claims. The police told Marcus that if no one came forward to claim the briefcase within 90 days, and if they could verify he was the legitimate finder, the money would legally become his. But Marcus wasn't interested in technicalities. He wanted to find the rightful owner. He spent his own time and money putting up notices in the building and nearby businesses. Found. Lost item. If you can accurately describe it and prove ownership, please contact. He checked security footage with permission from Mr. Harrison, trying to determine where the briefcase might have come from. During this time, Marcus said nothing to Elena about the specific contents. He only told her he had found something valuable and was trying to locate the owner. Elena, who knew her husband's character well, simply nodded and supported his decision, even though she knew they were sinking deeper into debt with each passing day. The 90 days felt like 90 years. Marcus went to work each day, came home to a stack of medical bills, and watched his daughter slowly recover while his family's financial situation deteriorated further. Friends and even some family members who had learned vaguely about the found briefcase questioned his judgment. Why not just keep it? They asked. Finders keepers, right? Some even called him foolish for not solving his family's problems when he had the chance. But Marcus held firm. It's not mine, he would say simply. How could I teach Sophia about integrity while betraying my own values? The owner appears. On the 87th day, Marcus received a call from the police department. A woman named Margaret Reynolds had come forward with a claim. She described the briefcase in exact detail, down to a small tear in the lining and specific markings on the leather. She provided documentation showing that her late husband had withdrawn exactly $50,000 in cash 3 years prior, shortly before his unexpected death from a heart attack. Margaret explained that her husband, Robert, had been in the early stages of dementia and had hidden money in various places, not trusting banks due to confusion. After his death, Margaret had searched everywhere, but had never found this particular cache. She believed Robert might have been visiting a friend in Marcus's building, a man who had since moved away, and somehow left or hid the briefcase there, perhaps forgetting about it entirely in his confused state. The police verified her story through bank records, her husband's death certificate, and other documentation. The briefcase was indeed hers, or rather, it was part of her late husband's estate. Marcus met Margaret at the police station when she came to retrieve the briefcase. She was a woman in her 70s, dressed simply but with dignity. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw the briefcase intact. "I can't believe it," she said, her voice breaking. "After 3 years, I had given up hope. This money, it was supposed to be for our retirement. After Robert died, I've been living on just Social Security. This changes everything." Marcus smiled. Though his heart was heavy, thinking about his own family's struggles. "I'm glad it found its way back to you, ma'am." Margaret looked at him carefully. "The police told me you've been looking for the owner for 3 months, that you could have kept this legally, but chose not to." She paused. "Why?" "Because it wasn't mine," Marcus said simply. "It belonged to someone, and that someone needed it." The unexpected return. Margaret thanked Marcus profusely and left with her briefcase. Marcus returned home that evening, feeling at peace with his decision, even though it meant his family's problems remained unsolved. At least he could look his daughter in the eye without shame. At least he could sleep at night, knowing he had done the right thing. 2 days later, there was a knock at Marcus's door. When he opened it, Margaret stood there, accompanied by a younger man in a business suit. "Mr. Chen," Margaret began, "this is my attorney, David Winters. May we come in?" Confused but courteous, Marcus invited them inside. Elena emerged from the kitchen, curious about the visitors. Margaret sat down and folded her hands in her lap. "Mr. Chen, Mrs. Chen, I've spent the last 2 days thinking about what you did, what you sacrificed. I did some research. I learned about your daughter's medical situation. I learned about your financial difficulties." She held up a hand when Marcus started to protest. "Please, let me finish. I found out that you could have legally kept that money after 90 days. Yet you spent those 90 days actively trying to find me. You put your family's desperate needs aside to do what was right." She opened her purse and pulled out an envelope. "This is a cashier's check for $50,000. I'm giving you the reward that you earned through your integrity." Marcus's eyes widened. "Mrs. Reynolds, I can't accept this. I was just doing what anyone should do." "But most people wouldn't," Margaret said gently. "And that's exactly why you deserve this." "But there's more." She nodded to her attorney. David Winters cleared his throat and spoke. "Mrs. Reynolds is a woman of substantial means, Mr. Chen. The $50,000 in cash was only a small part of her late husband's estate. She's been very moved by your situation and your character. She's asked me to establish a trust fund for your daughter's education. $100,000 that will be available when Sophia is ready for college. Additionally, she's paying all of your outstanding medical bills directly. All of them." The room fell silent. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Marcus simply stared, unable to process what he was hearing. "But why?" he finally managed to ask. "This is too much. I didn't do what I did expecting anything in return." "I know you didn't," Margaret said, tears streaming down her face. "That's exactly why I'm doing this. My Robert always used to say that integrity is what you do when no one is watching and there's nothing to gain. You demonstrated that. You gave me back hope when I had none. You gave me back 3 years of financial security. Let me do the same for you." The ripple effect. The impact of Margaret's generosity extended far beyond just paying off bills. With their debts cleared and their daughter's future secured, Marcus and Elena could finally breathe. The constant stress that had been suffocating their marriage lifted. Sophia, sensing the relief in her parents, recovered more quickly and completely. But the story didn't end there. Word of Marcus's integrity and Margaret's reward spread throughout the apartment building and the neighborhood. It became a local news story, a feel-good piece in a world that desperately needed them. The headline read, "Maintenance worker returns $50K, receives life-changing reward." The response was overwhelming. People from all over the city reached out to Marcus, sharing their own stories of honesty and integrity, inspired by his example. Teachers used his story in classrooms to teach children about character. Business owners offered Marcus better job opportunities, though he chose to stay in his current position out of loyalty to Mr. Harrison and the tenants he had come to care about. More significantly, the story inspired others to acts of kindness and honesty. A teenager who found a wallet with $300 returned it to its owner after hearing Marcus's story. A store clerk who had been contemplating keeping money from a register error chose honesty instead. Small acts of integrity rippled outward, creating a wave of positive change in the community. Mr. Harrison, Marcus's employer, was so impressed by the positive attention the story brought to the building that he gave Marcus a substantial raise and promoted him to property manager. "You've shown everyone here what real character looks like," he told Marcus. "That's the kind of person I want leading my team." The deeper lesson. As months passed and life returned to a new normal, a better normal, Marcus often reflected on those 90 days when he guarded someone else's money while his own family suffered. People would ask him if he ever regretted his decision, if he ever wished he had just kept the money. "Not once," he would answer honestly, "because if I had kept it, I would have lost something far more valuable than $50,000. I would have lost myself. I would have lost my integrity. And I would have taught my daughter that it's acceptable to compromise your values when things get hard." He would often talk with Sophia about what happened, using it as a teaching moment. Integrity, he told her, isn't about doing the right thing when it's easy. It's about doing the right thing when it costs you something, maybe everything. It's about being able to look at yourself in the mirror and like the person you see. Sophia, wise beyond her years after her own difficult experience, understood. "You gave back what wasn't yours," she said, "and the universe gave back what was always meant to be yours." Elena framed this simple wisdom and hung it in their home. What was lost will be returned, with interest. The universal truth. This story, while remarkable, points to a truth that ancient wisdom traditions and modern psychology both recognize. Integrity tends to be rewarded, though not always in ways we expect or on our preferred timeline. Marcus wasn't rewarded because he expected a reward. He was rewarded because his actions revealed his character, and that character attracted people who wanted to support and reciprocate his goodness. The interest in this story wasn't just financial. Marcus received back not just the equivalent of the money he could have kept, but far more. He received peace of mind, self-respect, his daughter's admiration, his community's respect, better career opportunities, and the satisfaction of knowing he had inspired others to acts of integrity. Margaret, too, received back more than she lost. She regained her financial security, yes, but she also gained something precious: faith in human goodness, at a time in her life when cynicism could have easily taken root. She made a meaningful difference in a family's life, giving her own life renewed purpose. The principle at work here is simple but profound. What we put out into the world tends to come back to us, often multiplied. When we act with integrity, kindness, and concern for others, even at cost to ourselves, we create the conditions for good to flow back into our lives. This isn't about karma or cosmic accounting. It's about the very practical reality that character attracts character, that integrity creates trust, and that trust opens doors that dishonesty can never access. Living the principle. You don't need to find a briefcase full of cash to apply this principle in your own life. Every day presents small opportunities to do the right thing when no one is watching, to choose integrity over convenience, to prioritize character over temporary gain. It might be returning the extra change a cashier gave you by mistake. It might be telling the truth when a lie would be easier. It might be keeping a promise when breaking it would cost you nothing. It might be choosing quality work even when no one would notice if you cut corners. These small acts of integrity compound over time, building a reputation, strengthening your character, and creating a life you can be proud of. They also create a network of trust and goodwill that often returns to benefit you in unexpected ways. Marcus's story reminds us that the universe, or life, or fate, or whatever you choose to call the mysterious force that seems to balance the scales, has a long memory for integrity. What seems lost in the moment may be preparing us for a greater return. What feels like sacrifice may be investment. What appears to be the hard choice may actually be the path to the greatest rewards. The challenge for all of us. As you go about your daily life, remember Marcus Chen and his 90 days of guarding money that wasn't his while his family suffered. Remember that he didn't know the story would end well. He didn't have any guarantee of reward. He simply did what he believed was right and trusted that somehow, some way, things would work out. That's the real test of integrity. Will you do the right thing even when you can't see the reward? Will you maintain your values even when circumstances pressure you to compromise? Will you be honest even when dishonesty seems advantageous? These are the questions that define who we are as individuals and as a society. Marcus answered them in a way that changed his life, inspired his community, and secured his daughter's future. The beautiful truth is that you have the same opportunity every single day. What was lost will be returned, with interest. This isn't just a feel-good saying or wishful thinking. It's a principle that operates in the lives of those who have the courage to live with integrity, patience, and faith that doing right ultimately leads to being rewarded, even if the form and timing of that reward remains a mystery until it arrives. The next time you face a choice between what's easy and what's right, between what you can get away with and what your conscience demands, remember this story. Remember that integrity is its own reward, but that it also tends to attract rewards from the universe in ways we cannot predict or imagine. Your character is being written in every small decision you make. Make sure it's a story you'll be proud to tell your children, and one that the universe will be eager to reward. If you found this story inspiring and meaningful, please follow our channel for more uplifting content about integrity, character, and the power of doing the right thing. Don't forget to like this post and share it with friends and family who might need a reminder that goodness still exists in the world and that it still gets rewarded. Your share might be exactly what someone needs to hear today to make the right choice in their own life. Together, we can spread the message that integrity matters and that what is lost truly can be returned with interest.